Welcome to the Shapes Additional Topics tutorial. In this tutorial we will demonstrate with two scenes, one a UK phone booth and the other an interior space. Both will show advanced techniques based on shapes and other tools. We begin with the phone booth to demonstrate some interesting methods for completing a surface model and for completing a texture from a single photograph. We'll start by creating a shapes-based project, load these photos from the phone booth, and use the Shapes Unknown Camera option. We have two photos that are duplicates of each other, but we will discuss that aspect later. We start by marking a box shape. We have our solved shape. A very simple box. We will look at the fast distorted textures. You can see we have textures on two sides but not the others. This is where we get into the interesting technique of using the duplicated photo. We'll open up this other photograph. You can see with them side by side that they are exactly the same. One is a copy of the other. We can do this with this type of project because the phone booth is symmetrical. Strictly, it is not perfectly symmetrical because the door is on one side only, but we'll ignore that for now. Assume the shape is perfectly symmetrical. We use this other photograph. Before we proceed, we need to ensure which face is which. This is the front face, and this is the right face, as shown here. On the other photo, we need to mark the back and left faces. It is important to orient yourself using the 3D view control. We'll go into marking and mark the edges of the booth on this photo. Both photographs are now oriented. And we have rough textures on all sides. We'd like to complete this top part, but we need to use a curved surface. What method can we use to get the surface? The method we will use starts with surface draw and then attach the surfaces to those curves. The surface draw can be started on any surface, in this case, shape face. We will zoom in on the top. Pick up the surface draw, mark Surface Curves tool. We need to start drawing the curve in the photo on top of surface. In this case, the shape face, and then trace out this curve. We end the curve drawing. You can see our curve in the 3D view. One feature of surface draw that we will use is that once a surface draw curve has been marked and associated with a surface, it can be moved. We move the starting point off the surface to make the curve truer. We repeat the same process on the other face of the box. We now have our two curves. We carry out the same steps with the other photograph. again dragging the first points of the surface draw for truer curves. Then we will use surfacing tools. First, the Loft tool. We need to select a curve and an edge. We need edges turned on. We select the curve and the edge and finish the surface. And repeat. We are going to be using a boundary patch, but we can see that the curves extend too far and will cause problems. We go back to the photo to move the surface draw. We use Select and the W key to show the object to be adjusted in the photo. We then do the adjustment. Then we use the Boundary Patch tool that requires 3 or 4 curves. We select them to create our surface patch. Then we show the completed textures. Because the top of the box is not completely visible in the photos, we will create a new flat shaded material, call it red, and pick a red color. We assign the new red material to this top surface. Lastly, we switch to Quality Textures. We have opened our done.pmr project from the tutorial folder to show the quality textured result. We can see the top surface done with Boundary Patch, Loft, and Surface Draw. This is our textured result. It has been done with one duplicated photo to get us textures and geometry on all sides. We will use a room interior for the next demonstration. We will create two projects with this imagery. We will first use a single photograph. We create a shape-based project and load one.jpg file. It is an unknown camera. Open the photograph and add a box shape to represent our room. The room is a box, and we'll call this back wall the back face of the box. We will start by marking the edges of the room. Using the Escape key to skip edges, or clicking in the Shape Explorer to pick a particular edge to mark. We wish to mark this edge, but we cannot see the vertex end of the box because it is outside the photo. So we switch to Edge mode. When edge marking, we are placing a point anywhere along the edge and not at the end of the edge in the corner of the room. We'll complete the other visible edges. We've now marked enough edges to define the back face and the width and the height of the box. But not the depth. There is not enough information in this single photo to get us the true depth. To get a solution, we use a relation. The relation we use is called the parameter equal relation. In this case, we want the box's depth to be equal to the box's width. As soon as we add this relation, the project solves because there is now sufficient information for all box parameters. We'll turn on the 3D projections. We can see the resulting room box projected onto the photo to check the solution. One thing we need to change has to do with boxes being exterior objects by default. We can see this two ways. First, we'll turn on 3D face names. We can see the back and the front of the box, and the back name is backwards. Also, if we open the 3D viewer, we can see the outside of the box only. To fix this, we use Properties. First, we pick the front face of the box and use the hidden property. We do for the top also. For the whole box, we will turn it inside out. Now we have the top and front faces are invisible, and the names now face correctly. With a single photograph project, you can add shapes to any existing face, and also surface draw can be used. We zoom in on the photo and pick up the surface draw tool. We mark the poster on the back wall. As we mark, we are putting points on the shape's back face. We can see the surface draw in the 3D viewer. We look at the textures with Fast Textures. You can see that only one face is textured. With Fast Textures, only faces and surfaces that completely appear on the photo will be textured. We use Quality Textures to improve that. We need to change one of the advanced material properties. This is the normal to light ray angle for texturing. We change this to 90 degrees. Then we'll create quality textures. You can see the extra texture. One interesting technique is to show the camera station as an image plane to see how the texture extents came out. We can only get so far with this one photo. We have formed the room, and we could form any shapes that sat on the walls or floor, as well as doing surface draw and texturing, but to get a complete room we have to take a different approach. This single photo project is saved as doneroomsingle.pmr if you wish to load it. We will now show a different room interior technique. We have loaded the project startroomfull.pmr. It is a shapes project with unknown cameras, 4 photographs, and a single small box has been marked in all 4 photos. Here we see the box and the 4 camera stations. The goal is to use the box, which is the only complete solid visible, in all 4 photos. It can be difficult to get a good solution with such a small object, and also sometimes off-center, but with careful marking it is possible, as we see here. In addition, as we add more shapes, the solution will improve. Our goal is to model the desk and the room's walls, starting with this one small box shape. We model the desk as 2 boxes. We have to relate these 2 boxes to the ground plane or the existing shape. The ground plane sits at the bottom of the small box. We start by selecting part of the small box and add a new box. When we add a second shape, the Define Relations dialog appears. Since the small box was selected, it is made part of the relation with the new shape. We want the desk shape to sit under the small box. We click on the green shape to get the choice for face. We choose the bottom face. We select the top face for the other. Now we have box 3. The new one we added has its top face in the same plane as the small box's bottom face. First, marking those edges we can see completely. Then for the edge that does not have a vertex, we switch to edge marking mode. With this last edge, the box solves. We can see a good result with the 3D projection. We model the rest of the desk with another box. We repeat the operation by selecting the small box and adding a new box. We pick the correct faces for the relation. We mark in vertex mode. Then back to edge mode. And our second box has solved. Now we will use the desk shape to improve our solution. We do this by looking at the desk 3D projections in the other photos. You can see how the projected 3D edges do not match the photograph. We can mark some edges of the desk in this photo, and we don't need to mark all its edges. We just use those to improve the solution on this photo. Before we do that, let's rename our shapes so they are easier to keep track of. Box 1 is the small box, so we will rename it such. Box 4 is the part of the desk against the wall, and the other is the desk part close to the door. We want to use part of this desk box and use edge marking to add individual edges to improve the fit. We continue to do this with the other photos. We improve photo 2 using desk door. Then photo 4, which is our portrait photo. We have improved all our photos and the fit of our desk and small box shape using edge marking as needed. Now we will mark the room box. We start with photo 1. We want to add a new box shape to represent the room, but that has its bottom face in the same plane as the bottom of the desk. We select the desk and add a box. The red box is the room, and the green box is part of the desk. We use the bottom of the desk, but the room ends up incorrect. Instead, we use the inside face of the desk box. We have box 5, the room box. Now has the same plane as the bottom of the desk. We orient the box to get the back of the room as the back face. And we begin our marking. We switch to edge mode to complete the edges where we cannot see the room corners. This is as much as we can do on this photo. Like the single photo project, we have not been able to mark enough of the room box to get it to solve. We have enough for the height and width to solve, but not the depth. But instead of using a parameter equal relation, we use another feature of shape marking. That is, that a shape can be marked on two oriented photos, some of the shape's edges on the one photo and the other edges on another photo. We'll do this with photo 2, as that captures the other end of the room. We orient our shape so we have it lined up with the front face at the front wall of the room. Go into vertex marking mode and mark the edges. The room box now solves. With some adjustment of our edge marks, we'll get a better fit. We look at the 3D viewer to do a bit of cleanup. All we can see is the outside of the box, so we need to hide some faces using the properties. We'll use the properties to hide the right face and the top face. And turn the box inside out. We can see the wall and the desk. Also, we check that the desk is solid, but in reality it is an open design, so we'll hide some of those faces too. We'll look at the fast textures first. We can only see the complete faces textured, but with quality textures we can see more. We have loaded doneroomfull.pmr to see the completed result. We have the Shape Edge 3D projections turned on to see how well the shapes match. There has also been some work done with Surface Draw to get the curved section of the desk. In the 3D viewer, we have quality textures. Those areas that are gray are not visible in any photo or are obscured by the desk. We can even see our small box. It is interesting to look at the camera locations in image plane form to see how the textures were formed. We can see how the photographs line up with texture boundaries in the model. This concludes the ShapesAdditional Topics tutorial. We have learned how to use Surface Draw and other surfaces in a Shapes project, use a duplicate photo to add textures and geometry to a symmetrical object, use a single photograph of unknown origin to create a room interior, create an interior using multiple photos, use additional shape edge marks to improve fit, and use shape relations to correctly place objects in the scene.